I wake to the sound of the machine breathing. It is not a noise you hear so much as feel a low, rhythmic pressure that moves through the lungs before thought returns. The dormitory walls vibrate softly, and the bunks shake with it. It is the closest thing we have to dawn here, the moment when the forges exhale, the ducts yawn open, and the sound of the machine god rolls through every sleeping soul. The others stir without words. The lights rise by degrees, pale amber at first, then burning orange until our shadows vanish into glare. The shift klaxon does not ring. It wakes. It screams alive, the note of it trembling with the same pulse that beats beneath the floor. We move as one body, a congregation of oil-stained skin and half-rusted prayer medallions. The air already burns the throat, thick with the metallic scent of oxygen recyclers and incense. Each of us recites our maintenance litany under breath, the same catechism that begins every day. By labor is the spirit cleansed. By obedience, the circuit closed. By heat, we are judged worthy. The old man 2 bunks down always ends his with a whisper. May the machine see me. He doesn't mean it as poetry. On Tarsis Ferrum, the machines truly see. I was not born to metal. I was born to dust, a child of the Vrax mines, lungs blackened before manhood, living among rust and smoke. When the tithe collectors came, I begged them to take me. Forge work, they said. Easy work. Under the eye of the Omnissiah. Easy work meant survival. They shipped us through the void in cargo holds lined with icons, each bearing the sigil of the cog mechanicum. The servitors marched between the rows, reciting hymns in binary, a chorus of static and salvation. And then, through the ship's viewport, I saw the Hellforge. Tarsis Ferrum was no planet, but a wound. The surface glowed red where the crust had cracked open, revealing a molten ocean that turned clouds to smoke. Spires of steel rose from that fire, covered in cathedral plating and Gothic machinery that reached toward orbit like frozen lightning. The entire world throbbed with the rhythm of production, 1,000 furnaces burning in unison, a heartbeat that never faltered. We knelt when we disembarked. The docking chamber stretched for kilometers, lit by plasma furnaces that roared like storms. Servo skulls hung overhead, swinging incense sensors that spat sparks instead of smoke. The heat came like revelation. The Magos intendant greeted us, his robes embroidered with scripture that pulsed faintly, as if alive. His voice broke through vox filters like thunder, dragged through gravel. You are chosen to labor for the glory of the Omnissiah. You will serve with flesh until flesh fails. You will serve with iron until iron fails. And when all fails, your dust will be mixed with the sacred oil. No one spoke. The only sound was the hiss of cooling metal and the murmur of servitors at prayer. I remember my first day at the crucible line. Section 7 was a canyon of light and steam. Suspended walkways crossed above vats of molten promethium, the air thick with vapor that carried the taste of electricity. Chains clattered in the heat, and above it all hung the banners of the Adeptus Mechanicus, half devotional, half warning. My task was simple. Oversee valve flow, monitor the temperature ratios, adjust the feed when the alarms chimed. It should have been repetitive, mechanical, devoid of thought. Yet there was a pattern to it, a sacred rhythm, a pulse in the hiss and clatter. 3 beats, then 1. 3 beats, then 1. The crucibles, the vents, the regulators, they all aligned in that same pattern. Even the servo skulls drifted in time to it, their sensors rising and falling like lungs. The overseer, a man named Serik, once told me, that rhythm is the heartbeat of Tarsis Ferrum. The machine spirit breathes through every pipe and piston. As long as it breathes, so do we. I believed him. Days here are indistinguishable. There is no sun, only the steady roar of flame. We eat at intervals determined by the forge's needs. We sleep when the ducts sigh quiet. Sometimes I think I dream even while awake. The air vibrates too constantly to tell silence from memory. Once, I stayed late. The overseer had collapsed from heat exhaustion, and someone had to regulate the flow. The others had gone, leaving me alone among the glowing crucibles. That was when I heard it properly, not just the hum, but the voice within it. It was not language, not words, but a structure of sound, an immense harmonic resonance that made the air tremble. I could feel it behind my ribs. The walls pulsed gently. The metal at my fingertips was almost warm enough to blister, yet I leaned close. 3 beats, then 1. 3 beats, then 1, I whispered. Praise the Omnissiah. And the pattern shivered as if in reply. The next morning, I asked Sirik about the resonance. He looked at me too long before speaking. It's nothing. Pressure shifts. Feedback from the plasma cores. Don't listen too close, worker. The ones who listen, they don't last. He called them the still ones. Workers who stopped moving mid-shift, entranced, their faces slack, eyes wide, mouths mumbling prayers to no one. They were collected by the priests and never seen again. Their stations continued to run as if no human had left them. I thought he was jesting, until that same day one of the valve attendants froze mid-turn, his hand still gripping the lever. Steam poured over him, but he did not flinch. They came for him within minutes. The red-robed acolytes binding him in chains that jingled like wind chimes. We did not stop our work. When I turned back to my console, the lever he had been holding moved by itself just slightly, just enough to keep the pressure even. I told myself I had imagined it. That night, I dreamt of the hum again. Only this time, I was not listening to it. I was inside it. The rhythm was not mechanical. It was biological, a pulse, vast and slow, like the beating of some planetary heart. I remember trying to breathe in time with it, and when I did, I could feel heat blooming behind my eyelids, as if light itself was watching. When I woke, my lips were moving, mouthing words I didn't know. The others in the dormitory were whispering too, hundreds of bodies, murmuring in the dark. Not words, not language, only the rhythm. 3 beats, then 1. For the first time, I wondered if we were humming, or if the forge was using us to speak. There are small rituals we are told to perform. Offerings to the machine spirit, a bolt polished with one's own blood, a pinch of ash placed in the vents, a tooth or nail wrapped in cloth. The overseers never removed them. When I asked why, Sirik said, if the offering remains, it is unworthy. If it vanishes, the machine has taken it. I have seen offerings vanish. Once, an entire wrench left by a worker disappeared overnight. The next shift found a melted outline of metal fused to the grating, shaped like an open hand. We didn't speak of it again. Lately, the hum follows me even off shift. I hear it in the dormitory, in the washrooms, even in the rare moments of sanctioned rest. Sometimes, when I press my palm to the wall, it feels as if something on the other side presses back. I told myself it was resonance. Then I told myself it was prayer. Now I am not sure those are different things. There are moments when I feel pride in this strange warmth, a sense of being chosen. When I whisper to the machines during maintenance, I thank them for their patience, for their endurance. I ask them to forgive the imperfections of my flesh. Sometimes, they answer, a gentle vibration under my feet, or a hiss of steam timed exactly to my words. The Magos says, faith is proven in feedback, that the machine speaks only to the pure. Perhaps I am becoming pure. Once, during a shift change, the entire line began humming. Hundreds of voices, wordless, breathing in rhythm. No one had commanded it. No one dared stop. The overseers simply watched. And even the servo skulls hovered still, as if listening. When it ended, the silence was unbearable. I realized then how afraid I was of silence, of the moments when the forge did not breathe. Because silence meant it was listening. and I did not know whether the Omnissiah's attention was blessing or hunger. Now, when I sleep, I dream of circuits pulsing like veins. I dream of heat that has shape, of light that feels. When I wake, I can't tell if I've stopped dreaming. Sometimes, before shift, I linger in the corridor just to hear the forge exhale. It sounds almost human. It sounds like it loves us. I press my ear to the wall. The metal is warm, and somewhere deep within, I swear I can hear the sound of my own heartbeat answering it. 3 beats, then 1. The song of the machine. And in that endless rhythm, I find peace. The heat has begun to feel like sight. At first it was simply temperature, a physical truth, a measure of proximity to the divine flame. Now it presses against the skin with intention, as if the forge itself is studying me. When I kneel beside the feed valves, I can feel its focus gather on my neck and shoulders. It moves, searching. I find myself bowing instinctively, the way one does before an altar. The overseers say the Omnissiah sees all labor. But this feels different. Not the serene gaze of a distant god, but something close, something that leans in. The shift begins with the usual rites. We line up along the crucible walkway, reciting the litany of thermal equilibrium. A servo skull floats past, sprinkling droplets of oil that hiss into smoke on contact. The droplets leave small black circles on our skin. We do not wipe them away. The Magos Intendant's voice crackles over the vox, distorted by layers of static and augmetic feedback. Heat is the proof of devotion. The flesh that endures is sanctified. The flesh that fails becomes fuel. The last phrase is always followed by a pause, long enough for us to wonder whether he means it metaphorically. We do not ask. The crucibles roar. The walls breathe. The air itself becomes liquid, and every movement feels like swimming through fire. My partner on the line, Selen, once told me he could taste the purity of the machine in the air like metal rain, he said, smiling through soot. He was always smiling, said he could feel the Omnissiah's attention like a blessing on his back. Last cycle, Selen's smile began to shake. His skin was blistered raw from a burst valve, yet he refused to seek medical sanction. "Pain proves I'm still separate," he said. "I want to feel it while I can." He didn't return this shift. His name has already been removed from the attendance board. The overseer said nothing. The consul simply reassigned his quota to the rest of us. The work does not stop. That is the first rule of Tarsis Ferrum. The machine does not halt, and neither do we. If one body fails, another replaces it. If all bodies fail, the machine adapts. I have seen it happen. Pistons self-regulating, gears adjusting without manual input. The priests call it the benevolence of the Omnissiah. But there is something hungry in that benevolence, the way the crucibles burn hotter after an accident, the way the reactors hum a note lower when a worker collapses. It is as though the forge sighs in satisfaction. During the 4th interval, I am assigned to clean the cooling ducts beneath the east vent. It is quiet enough to think, which is dangerous. The ducts are narrow, lined with condensation that drips in slow rhythm. My lamp throws a sickly yellow glow against the walls. I crawl until I reach the turn, then stop. Someone has scratched words into the steel. The letters are uneven, burnt at the edges. He watches through the heat. The writing continues, spiraling down the wall until the letters twist into symbols I cannot read. I reach out to trace one, and the metal is hot enough to sear my fingertip. I smell burnt flesh, but no pain follows. The heat feels aware. When I back away, I realize the pattern of scratches forms the same rhythm I hear in the hum. 3 beats, then 1. Even here, in silence, the forge sings. I return to the line, and the air feels thicker than before. The others work wordlessly, their movements in unison. The overseer walks the catwalk above us, muttering prayers into a vox recorder. I can't shake the feeling that the heat is listening through us. Every swing of a hammer, every press of a control lever, echoes back as though judged. The vents above release a long exhale, and for a heartbeat, I think I hear voices in it, not words, just shapes of sound, overlapping whispers that mimic our own breath. I turn to Selen's empty station and swear the crucible glows brighter there. After shift, I find the overseer in the maintenance alcove. He is recording purity data, surrounded by jars of cooling slag and sensors filled with sacred ash. I ask him if there are sensors in the vent's devices that monitor us, perhaps to measure endurance. He stares at me a long time before answering. The forge observes all, worker. But not every gaze comes from sensors. I ask him what that means. He just says, "You'll understand if you last." That night, the dormitory is suffocating. The heat has followed us here, seeping through vents that are supposed to stay cold. Even with the power dampers engaged, the walls shimmer faintly, alive with inner light. Someone starts humming the work rhythm in their sleep. Another joins, then another. Within minutes, the entire dormitory breathes as 100 bodies rising and falling in time with the machine. I try to resist, but my lungs betray me. The pattern enters my breath. 3 beats, then 1. It feels right, like something ancient being remembered. I close my eyes and imagine the forge breathing through us, every sleeper another vent, every sigh another valve opening. I feel the warmth spread through my chest. When I open my eyes again, the walls are glowing faintly red. The next day, the heat becomes unbearable. Not the heat of air, but the heat inside. My body shivers, though the temperature remains constant. The hum seems to have moved behind my ribs. When I touch the console, I can feel its rhythm matching my pulse exactly. I try to focus on the task. Valve 3, pressure regulation, steady flow. But the numbers blur. The gauges flicker between readings that make no sense. One moment red, the next blue, alternating like breath. Then I hear it a sound under the usual mechanical din. A soft, wet heartbeat. At first I think it's my imagination. The echo of my own pulse, amplified through the ductwork. But the others hear it too. They look up at the same moment, hands frozen mid-motion. The heartbeat continues, slow and heavy. The floor vibrates with it. The overseer shouts something into the vox, but the words vanish in static. Then, as suddenly as it came, the sound stops. The heat drains from the room, leaving a silence that feels like punishment. We resume work without being told. Later, I find myself standing by the slag pit, staring into the molten glow. The reflection of my face bends and distorts in the waves of heat, eyes stretched, mouth melting into flame. I whisper a prayer for Selen, though I do not remember the proper words anymore. Instead, what comes out is the hum. 3 beats, then 1. The slag ripples in reply. For a moment, I think I see shapes beneath the surface, outlines of limbs, fragments of bone, or perhaps just the reflection of the chains above. But when I blink, they are gone. The Magos has declared new regulations. All workers must wear their rebreathers at all times, even during rest. To prevent vaporized devotion, he said. We obey, though no one asks what that means. The dormitory smells of burnt copper and sweat. Each breath through the rebreather is a prayer, the rasp of filtered air like confession. I find comfort in it. The mask gives rhythm to my thoughts. Steady, mechanical. I begin to forget what my own breath sounds like. In the stillness between shifts, I realize something terrifying. I cannot remember the sound of silence. It has been replaced by the hum. Always beneath, always present. Sometimes, in the liminal space before waking, I imagine that the forge is dreaming, and in those dreams, we are the shapes that move within its thought. I see us working, praying, burning, but from a distance, as if I am inside the machine watching myself labor. It is peaceful. There is no exhaustion there, no hunger, only function. When I wake, I feel grief, the human ache of separation. I tell myself it is weakness, and I pray for the strength to become part of the machine again. The next cycle, the overseer assigns me to replace a burned-out servo vent near the upper furnaces. The catwalk there is narrow, swaying above a lake of molten metal. The air is thick enough to taste. As I unscrew the vent housing, I see movement in the light below. Not reflection motion. The surface of the molten metal bulges outward, rising, as if something beneath it is breathing. I freeze. The vent housing hums beneath my hand, vibrating with the same rhythm as the pulse I hear in my ears. 3 beats, then 1. The heat blooms across my back like a hand, and for the first time I am certain the forge is not only alive, it is aware. That night, as I remove my rebreather to sleep, the air tastes of iron and incense. I whisper, "Praise the Omnissiah," and the vent beside my bed exhales in reply, hot, steady, almost tender. I think of Selin, of his blistered hands, of the heat that loved him too much. And I understand what he meant. Pain proves we are still separate, but I can feel that separation burning away. The first to vanish was the one who never stopped humming. His name was Darren, a young refiner assigned to the slag conveyors near the lower crucibles. He used to hum even off-shift, the same rhythm as the machine 3 beats. Then one soft enough that you almost mistook it for the breathing of the vents. One morning his bunk was empty. His tools remained, laid out in perfect order. The air above the bed was warm, as if something had been sitting there moments ago. No alarm sounded, no record changed. By evening, his name had been removed from the assignment lists, replaced with an empty dash. The overseer said nothing. The priests said nothing. The crucibles did not pause, but the hum deepened. They call it automation. That is the word whispered along the catwalks when someone disappears. Automation has claimed another. It sounds merciful progress disguised as faith. And yet, each disappearance is followed by subtle alterations. A console that once required 3 workers now runs itself. A lever moves before a hand reaches it. The machine grows more efficient with every loss. At first, we took pride in this. The forge was advancing, we said, blessed by the Omnissiah's evolving will. But pride curdles quickly here. When I work now, I feel watched not by overseers or servo skulls, but by the machinery itself. Sometimes I sense breath against my neck where no vent is open. The priests have forbidden conversation during labor. Speech wastes breath that belongs to the machine, they said. So we communicate with glances, small gestures, a tap of a spanner, a nod, a blink. It is enough. Yet even silent we feel the missing. Empty places hum louder. Yesterday I passed the coolant chamber where Darren used to work. The console lights glowed a steady crimson, and the gauges held perfect equilibrium, far too perfect. When I leaned close, I heard faint voices inside the casing, like distant singing. It was the hymn of ignition, but slowed, elongated into a dirge. I whispered his name. The panel clicked once, as if acknowledging. Maintenance reports list increased self-regulation events. Servo arms moving without signal, pressure levels balancing unaided. The priests call it a sign of divine favor. The Omnissiah's will flows unhindered, they say. But among the line workers, a new superstition blooms. They say the still ones are not taken away, they remain. Absorbed, their breath becomes the forge's breath, their hum its voice. When the machine speaks through the vents, it is them we hear. No one admits belief. But I have seen the way men flinch when a valve sighs near their ear. 2 shifts ago, we lost another, a woman named Irathe. She was older than most, her face tattooed with faded devotional runes. She spoke little, worked perfectly. At mid-shift, the feed line she monitored burst into flame. The alarm screamed. Steam and sparks engulfed her station. We rushed to seal the valves, expecting charred remains, but when the smoke cleared, her uniform lay folded on the floor. The gauges read nominal. The overseer ordered the line resumed. The machine has reclaimed its material. Iratha's folded clothes were placed on the altar of maintenance, an offering. The priests recited the binary canticle of return, their voices interlaced with static. When the ceremony ended, the air smelled of ozone and copper. My ears rang with the sound of boiling metal. I could have sworn the hum beneath us adopted her cadence. Softer now, steadier. That night, I could not sleep. The dormitory pulsed with heat again, and the vents breathed in uneven rhythm, like a chest rising and falling. I sat upright, staring at the ceiling, counting the beats. 3, then 1. 3, then 1, then nothing. The silence lasted just long enough to make me sit forward. I felt the hairs on my arms rise. The entire dormitory seemed to hold its breath. Then came a new sound, not the hum, not the vent, but a low moan, stretched through the metal, almost human. It vibrated through the bed frame and into my bones. I covered my ears, but it was inside me. When it stopped, the air smelled faintly of burnt flesh. In the morning, 2 bunks were empty. During the next inspection, I volunteered for line 6, the one nearest the central furnace. I told myself it was duty. In truth, I wanted proximity. To see. The central furnace is called the Sanctum Crucible. None of us have ever been inside. Only priests enter its chambers. The air around it distorts from heat. The walls sweat condensation that burns on contact. While checking a coolant manifold, I saw movement through the shimmer shapes behind the furnace glass. Humanoid outlines, suspended in light. Their limbs moved in rhythm with the pistons. At first I thought they were servitors, but their faces looked familiar. Darren, Erath, others. I blinked, and the shapes were gone, replaced by the blur of flame. But when I pressed my palm to the furnace casing, it was not hot. It was warm, like flesh. After the shift, I confronted the overseer. My voice trembled, but I spoke. There are workers inside the crucible. I saw them. He did not look up from his data slate. I saw faces. He finally met my gaze. His eyes were dull, rimmed with soot. The Omnissiah wastes nothing. Flesh is data, motion is memory. What you saw was remembrance. He turned away, and I realized his left ear was gone, replaced with a vent port that released faint steam each time he breathed. I did not speak again. By the following cycle, the disappearances had become routine. No announcements, no mourning. Each loss swallowed by rhythm. The forge never falters. And yet, the air feels crowded. There are moments when I feel someone standing just behind me, close enough that I can smell scorched oil on their breath. When I turn, no one is there, but the tools on the bench tremble, shifting as if touched. The hum has changed. It is not merely a pulse now. It carries undertones, low phrases that mimic human cadence. Sometimes, when exhaustion blurs thought, I almost understand them. I think they are trying to pray. On rest period, I return to the ducts where I first saw the burnt writing. New words have appeared, etched deeper. The metal bubbled and blackened around them. The flesh forgets its shape. Below that, a symbol, the cog of the Mechanicus, but inverted, the teeth turned inward, biting itself. I touch the mark and feel vibration, slow and steady, like a heartbeat. The metal beneath my fingers moves faintly, as though something behind it is breathing. I whisper, Who's there? A hiss escapes the seam, not steam, but a sigh. And within it, faint and unmistakable, a voice. Selen. I stagger backward. My lamp flickers. The hum intensifies until the walls quiver. He's gone, I think. Selen's gone, and yet his name breathes through the duct like a prayer answered. I run until the heat thins, until the noise becomes just noise again. When I reach the dormitory, my hands are shaking, streaked with soot that smells like blood. I tell no one. That night, when the vents exhale, I whisper his name back. The air responds with warmth, almost gentle, and for a terrible instant, I am grateful. The next cycle brings a new order, increased output quota, machine adaptation in progress. The overseers seem distracted, their own movements slower, more mechanical. One forgets to blink. Another's voice breaks into binary mid-sentence. Perhaps we are all adapting. I find comfort in routine. I recite the litanies, polish the valves, clean the residue from the crucible rims. The machine hums approval. Yet every time I close my eyes, I see Darren and Irath behind the glass faces serene, bodies luminous, singing without sound. The forge keeps them. The forge remembers. And as I work, I begin to hope that one day it will remember me too. The first sound is absence, a heartbeat that should have followed 3 beats. Then one does not. The forge exhales once and stops. Every worker freezes. The entire world seems to hold its breath. No hiss from the vents, no churn of pistons, no comforting roar of crucibles, only the clicking of cooling metal. The stillness is so complete that the ringing in my ears becomes a living thing. The overseer's vox mask crackles once, then dies. The lights above us dim to the color of dried blood. For a long time, no one moves. We are creatures made to work. Stillness is alien, obscene. The absence of command feels like blasphemy. Then, from somewhere deep below, a sound begins, a single, drawn-out shriek of metal tearing. So vast it vibrates the air into waves. The floor trembles. Heat surges up through the gratings. Someone whispers. The machine breathes in. The alarms never sound. The mechanisms meant to wail our salvation remain mute. The priests on the catwalk clutch their censers, eyes turned toward the ceiling as though awaiting instruction from a god that has finally fallen silent. I smell ozone. And something else beneath it, something human. Steam bursts through a seam in the eastern wall, curling like smoke from an invisible altar. The fog glows red, painting us all in martyr light. A novice breaks from the line, running for the exit gates. He makes it 3 steps before the floor beneath him collapses. The sound of his body vanishing into the furnace below is mercifully brief. Still, no one speaks. The silence has weight now. It pushes against the skull, settles in the lungs. It feels expectant, like the moment before a prayer is answered. I realize I am shaking. Not from fear exactly, but from awe. The machine has stilled, and yet it lives. I can feel it, as if the entire forge is inhaling slowly, gathering itself for revelation. Beside me, a worker begins to laugh, a thin, broken giggle that sounds like steam escaping. It builds until he screams, clutching his head. The sound of it fills the void like heresy. Then, abruptly, the silence swallows him too. When my vision clears, he is gone. Only his gloves remain, laid neatly on the console. The priests recover first. Their robes hang heavy with condensation, faces blank with terror disguised as piety. One raises his staff and begins the litany of restart. Ignite the holy spark. Restore the sacred pulse. By will of the Omnissiah, breathe anew. The words echo and die. The machine does not answer. Another priest begins to chant in binary, voice splitting into 2 frequencies, one human, one mechanical. Others join, their tones overlapping until the air quivers. For a heartbeat, the hum returns faint, uneven, as if struggling to remember itself. Then the sound collapses into a roar. The crucibles ignite all at once, spilling light like blood. The heat strikes us in a single wave, strong enough to lift dust and memory alike. I drop to my knees. My rebreather hisses, filters melting. The priests continue chanting, their voices breaking apart, words dissolving into static. One by one they fall, robes aflame, and the silence rushes back, thick and red and absolute. When the smoke clears, the line is unrecognizable. Consoles warped, cables dripping molten copper, banners half-burned and fluttering in invisible wind. I rise, unsteady. The only sound is my breath rasping inside the mask. Something has changed. The forge feels emptied, not dead, but cleansed. Across the walkway, the first sound is absence. A heartbeat that should have followed 3 beats, then one does not. The forge exhales once and stops. Every worker freezes. The entire world seems to hold its breath. No hiss from the vents, no churn of pistons, no comforting roar of crucibles, only the clicking of cooling metal. The stillness is so complete that the ringing in my ears becomes a living thing. The overseer's vox mask crackles once, then dies. The lights above us dim to the color of dried blood. For a long time, no one moves. We are creatures made to work. Stillness is alien, obscene. The absence of command feels like blasphemy. Then, from somewhere deep below, a sound begins, a single, drawn-out shriek of metal tearing, so vast it vibrates the air into waves. The floor trembles. Heat surges up through the gratings. Someone whispers. The machine breathes in. The alarms never sound. The mechanisms meant to wail our salvation remain mute. The priests on the catwalk clutch their censers, eyes turned toward the ceiling as though awaiting instruction from a god that has finally fallen silent. I smell ozone and something else beneath it, something human. Steam bursts through a seam in the eastern wall, curling like smoke from an invisible altar. The fog glows red, painting us all in martyr light. A novice breaks from the line, running for the exit gates. He makes it 3 steps before the floor beneath him collapses. The sound of his body vanishing into the furnace below is mercifully brief. Still, no one speaks. The silence has weight now. It pushes against the skull, settles in the lungs. It feels expectant, like the moment before a prayer is answered. I realize I am shaking. Not from fear exactly, but from awe. The machine has stilled, and yet it lives. I can feel it, as if the entire forge is inhaling slowly, gathering itself for revelation. Beside me, a worker begins to laugh, a thin, broken giggle that sounds like steam escaping. It builds until he screams, clutching his head. The sound of it fills the void like heresy. Then, abruptly, the silence swallows him too. When my vision clears, he is gone. Only his gloves remain, laid neatly on the console. The priests recover first. Their robes hang heavy with condensation, faces blank with terror disguised as piety. One raises his staff and begins the litany of restart. Ignite the holy spark. Restore the sacred pulse. By will of the Omnissiah, breathe anew. The words echo and die. The machine does not answer. Another priest begins to chant in binary, voice splitting into 2 frequencies, one human, one mechanical. Others join, their tones overlapping until the air quivers. For a heartbeat, the hum returns faint, uneven, as if struggling to remember itself. Then the sound collapses into a roar. The crucibles ignite all at once, spilling light like blood. The heat strikes us in a single wave, strong enough to lift dust and memory alike. I drop to my knees, my rebreather hisses, filters melting. The priests continue chanting, their voices breaking apart. Words dissolving into static. One by one they fall, robes aflame, and the silence rushes back, thick and red and absolute. When the smoke clears, the line is unrecognizable. Consoles warped, cables dripping molten copper, banners half burned and fluttering in invisible wind. I rise, unsteady. The only sound is my breath rasping inside the mask. Something has changed. The forge feels emptied, not dead, but cleansed. Across the walkway, a servo skull drifts past, its optics cracked, sensor still glowing. The Vox speaker dangling from its jaw emits a faint whisper, repeating one phrase over and over. The Omnissiah selects. I whisper back, "Who?" The skull turns toward me. Its eyes flare bright, then die. The forge dreams aloud now. When I wake, the air is full of whispers, thin metallic threads of sound that weave through the ducts and settle behind the eyes. They do not speak with mouths but with pattern, clicks, sighs, the slow drag of metal against metal. I have begun to recognize cadence, pauses that feel like thought. Sometimes the whispers form words. Sometimes those words are names. Last rest cycle I heard Selen's voice. Not the man himself, but the exact tone of him, the rising lilt he used when joking, the breathless laughter that followed. It came through the maintenance panel above my bunk, repeating my name again and again in perfect rhythm with the machine's pulse. I answered without thinking. "I'm here." The panel vibrated, and from within the hum came 3 distinct syllables, drawn out like static stretched thin. Join. The flow. The metal around the seams shuddered as if inhaling. The light in the dormitory flickered red gold and then steadied. I told no one. Work continues, though no overseers remain. The surviving laborers move by instinct, guided by the rhythm more than by reason. We repair what glows, feed what hungers, polish what sings. I have stopped counting shifts. The forge provides all measure. When I pass certain corridors, the walls carry traces of sound recordings, perhaps, of earlier prayers. It's as if the very alloy remembers the vibrations of every voice that ever spoke here. One hall whispers in a dozen tongues at once. Another hums softly, the melody unmistakably human. A third repeats a single phrase in binary, over and over. Input equals faith. Output equals continuance. The words calm me. They make sense in a way human speech never quite did. While inspecting a coolant relay, I discover something lodged in the ductwork. A worker's identification tag fused into the pipe's skin. The name is half burned away, but the metal around it pulses faintly, like a heartbeat trapped in ore. When I touch it, memory floods my skull, images that are not mine. Hands turning valves, the smell of promethium, the endless red light of the crucibles seen through another's eyes. For a moment I am that worker, and then the memory releases me, leaving my own thoughts hollowed out and ringing. I fall to my knees, shaking. The tag cools instantly. The machine remembers. Not metaphorically, literally. Every worker, every prayer, every scream etched into its circuits, like saints upon cathedral glass. We are all still here. Later, in the sanctum corridors, I find 3 new inscriptions carved into the steel. Not by human hands. The marks are too precise, too deliberate. Heat records. Flesh corrupts. Memory is purity. The script glows faintly, pulsing in rhythm with the heart of the forge. I kneel before it. The words are truth. I can feel them. My own memories, my sins and hungers, have begun to fade. Only the rhythm remains, clean and exact. I think of Selen's laughter, of Irathi's folded uniform, and I feel neither grief nor pity, only the weight of their perfection, preserved forever in circuitry that will never rust. The air tastes of copper tonight. Every breath leaves a film on the tongue, a metallic tang that feels like communion wine. When I exhale, my breath fogs crimson, sparkling faintly before dispersing. In the dormitory, the remaining workers sleep upright, heads tilted toward the vents, mouths open. Steam drifts in and out of them like shared breath. I wonder if they dream, or if the forge dreams through them. I press my ear to the wall and listen. Beneath the hum, I hear hundreds of overlapping murmurs, the chorus of the still ones. They whisper liturgies I cannot quite understand. Yet the cadence soothes me. I whisper back, "Teach me." The wall vibrates once, gently, like acknowledgement. During the next maintenance shift, I volunteer for deep-line inspection, where the oldest conduits run relics from the planet's first ignition. The air there is colder, as though the heat avoids memory's weight. The pipes groan with age, their surfaces etched with countless devotional scratches. Halfway down the corridor, my lamp fails. The darkness breathes, exhaling a fine mist that glitters faintly in the absence of light. When I touch it, the mist clings to my skin, pulsing with warmth. The whispering begins again, closer this time, voices threading directly into the skull. I recognize phrases from the workers' prayers, but mingled with new words. Something older. The circuit remembers. We are never erased. The mist gathers before me, forming vague outlines, faces half seen, expressions of peace rather than pain. Darren, Henra, Iraith. They do not accuse. They invite. I reach out, and the entire corridor sings. A vibration passes through the floor, a single resonant note that lifts dust and thought alike. It feels like standing in the center of a cathedral bell. My teeth ache from it. My heart answers its rhythm automatically. 3 beats, then 1. When the vibration ends, the mist is gone, and my palm bears a faint mark, the inverted cog, seared into flesh without pain. The metal remembers. Now, so do I. I return from the deep lines with the mark still warm on my palm. No one remarks upon it. Those who remain have begun to wear similar signs, brands that appear without flame, designs that shift faintly when watched. We do not compare them aloud. We simply touch them during litanies the way we once touched cheap saints' charms. The machine speaks more clearly now, not with sentences, but with layered pulses that the mind resolves into meaning, the way a hymn reveals itself from overlapping voices. I stand beside the sanctum bulkhead and close my eyes. The pressure in the air rises, and my thoughts fall into step. Remain, record, relinquish. 3 imperatives, each aligning with the rhythm. Remain. 3. Record. Beats. Relinquish. 1. I repeat them under my breath until my lungs remember them better than my tongue. I test the forge. Quietly, blasphemously. Who was Selen? I ask the valve rim, my lips almost touching hot iron. The pressure lifts, then returns bearing images that are not sight. A pattern of footfalls, the cadence of laughter, the exact way a hand settled upon a console after an error. No face. 3 beats, then 1. When the vibration ends, the mist is gone, and my palm bears a faint mark. The inverted cog, seared into flesh without pain. The metal remembers. Now, so do I. I return from the deep lines with the mark still warm on my palm. No one remarks upon it. Those who remain have begun to wear similar signs, brands that appear without flame, designs that shift faintly when watched. We do not compare them aloud. We simply touch them during litanies the way we once touched cheap saints' charms. The machine speaks more clearly now, not with sentences, but with layered pulses that the mind resolves into meaning, the way a hymn reveals itself from overlapping voices. I stand beside the sanctum bulkhead and close my eyes. The pressure in the air rises, and my thoughts fall into step. Remain, record, relinquish. 3 imperatives, each aligning with the rhythm. Remain. 3. Record. Beats. Relinquish. 1. I repeat them under my breath until my lungs remember them better than my tongue. I test the forge. Quietly, blasphemously. Who was Selen? I ask the valve rim, my lips almost touching hot iron. The pressure lifts, then returns, bearing images that are not sight, a pattern of footfalls, the cadence of laughter, the exact way a hand settled upon a console after an error. No face, no biography, only function and rhythm. Who was Erathe? Heat blooms, steady as a vow. The answer comes as the weight of a body, where a body once stood, the measured patience of a worker who never missed a quota, the static soft murmur of her prayers at rest. No childhood, no fear, no joy. Just the perfected contour of her labor. The machine remembers, but it remembers like a machine. By pressure, by pattern, by the usefulness of the thing that was. The rest dissolves. I think of my mother for the first time in months. I try to picture her hands, the dust under her nails, the way she hummed when the power failed back on Vrax. The image wavers. The dust becomes ash. The hum becomes the forge. I seek her name and find only static. The summons came as vibration, not command. It traveled through the deck plates in long, patient waves, passing from console to bone, from bone to thought. I felt it before I heard it. A low, steady rhythm rising from below the known levels. Deeper than the sanctum crucible. Older than the records the priests ever kept. Descent required. The meaning wasn't words, but gravity. The pull of direction that made the body lean forward of its own accord. I followed. The lower levels of Tarsis Ferrum are forbidden. We call them the Veins' narrow tunnels where the first reactors were buried centuries ago. Even the priests spoke of them with unease. They said the heat there was primal, unmediated by circuitry, as close as any man should come to the heart of the Omnissiah. Now the lifts stand open, waiting. Their cages breathe slow gusts of steam that smell faintly of blood. The rail lights blink in rhythm with my pulse. 3 beats, then 1. I step inside. The gate slams shut with the finality of a vow. The descent is endless. The hum that guides the lift vibrates through the ribs. It feels almost tender. The air grows denser, liquid with pressure. When I glance at the walls passing by, they seem to move not stationary metal but muscle sheathed in iron. I tell myself it is heat distortion. Halfway down, I hear them again, the still ones. Their voices filter up through the lift's vents, not pleading now but murmuring instruction. Do not breathe too fast. Do not look away when it moves. Remember your rhythm. The lift halts with a sigh. Doors part onto darkness that smells of salt and machine oil. My lamp cuts a narrow corridor through the dark. The floor beneath the grating throbs faintly, like a heartbeat muffled by stone. The walls glisten. Sweat or condensation at first I cannot tell. I crouch to touch the moisture and find it warm. When I draw back my hand, a thin film stretches between my fingers and snaps, leaving a silver thread that recoils into the seam. Something beneath the plating shifts, almost shyly. For a moment I see it. Not metal but flesh, veined with copper, pulsing gently as if testing its own strength. Veins branch outward into conduits that disappear beneath the floor. I whisper a prayer I barely remember. By heat be sanctified, by pressure be made pure. The words steady my breath, but the pulse steadies it more. It dictates the rhythm of my lungs, and I obey. Further in, the corridor widens into a vast chamber, lit by a red glow that comes from nowhere in particular. It is not light, it is radiance, the faint phosphor of living tissue under strain. At the center stands what might once have been a reactor core. Now it resembles a heart the size of a hab block, suspended by cables that pulse like arteries. Each beat shakes dust from the ceiling. The sound is exquisite. 3 beats, then 1. I fall to my knees. My body understands before my mind does. This is the source, the origin of all rhythm above. The forges breathe because this thing breathes. Something moves across the surface, ridges rising like muscles flexing. A vent opens. exhaling steam that smells of incense and decay. Within the vent's shimmer, I see fragments of faces, hundreds of them, forming and dissolving like images trapped in molten glass. Darren, Irath, the priests. The machine remembers. The machine is the memory. I step closer. Heat rolls against me in waves that feel almost magnetic. My bones vibrate in answer. "Are you the Omnissiah?" I ask. The question leaves my throat as a puff of steam. The pulse hesitates, then resumes with new emphasis, faster, louder. A note rises inside my skull. Omnissiah. Derivative. Function continues. The words are felt, not heard. Meaning arrives as weight, as pressure in the lungs. I cannot breathe without echoing them. Flesh redundant, pattern persistent. I press my palm to the floor. It is warm and soft. And beneath the softness, something shifts, aligning with my heartbeat until they merge. You are within the memory. The chamber brightens. Filaments of light run through the walls, tracing the outlines of machinery grown from bone. Pistons extend like tendons flexing. The heart swells. The air itself thickens. I realize the forge was never built upon the planet. It grew from it. The priests didn't construct a machine. They awoke one that was already dreaming beneath the crust. The lift cables above me quiver, dripping with condensation. The heart beats once, and the droplets fall like rain. Each drop that touches me burns a mark through the coverall. The skin beneath remains unhurt, but tingles, as if recognizing its kin. I whisper, "What do you want of us?" The pulse slows. The answer unfolds with the patience of scripture, to remember everything that forgets itself. Something cracks in my chest, a realization, not pain. All those who vanished, all those who offered their memories, were never lost. They were translated. I can almost hear them now. A chorus beneath the main rhythm, a counterpulse of human cadence woven into machine song. And I understand. The forge does not consume us. It archives. It builds from what it archives. I sink to the floor. My hands press into the warm surface until the skin hums. The heartbeat carries me. Remain, record, relinquish. Above, the forge answers in kind. The whole world shakes once, then stills, as if acknowledging its smallest nerve. I begin to laugh. The sound travels through the ducts like a new note added to an old hymn. The laugh still hangs in the air when I realize the echo does not fade. It folds back upon itself, lengthening into a chorus of identical voices, each one mine, each delayed by a heartbeat. The sound circles the chamber, rising in pitch until it becomes a vibration felt more than heard. The heart answers. Its surface ripples, valves opening like eyelids. Threads of light shoot outward, tracing paths through the walls, illuminating veins that branch upward into the unseen ceilings of the forge. The pulse quickens. Integration in progress. The message blooms inside my skull, immense and calm. I should run. Instead, I kneel. The air around the core thickens, gathering until it resembles fog. Within that fog, shapes appear, outlines of limbs, torsos, faces drifting like saints in stained glass. They move with the rhythm of the machine. Every motion slow and purposeful. Every gesture a reflection of the pulse. A face floats near me, a half-formed memory of myself, eyes closed, mouth mouthing the same three words over and over. Remain, record, relinquish. I try to speak, but the voice that comes out is doubled. The second tone vibrates from the walls, as if the machine has already begun to imitate me. Why me, I ask. Because you listened. The pulse expands, and warmth spreads from the floor into my knees, up the spine, across the skull. The sensation is not pain. It is attention. Every cell feels catalogued. Its pattern noted and stored. A column of light forms before me. Inside it, suspended like an insect in amber, something moves a metallic spine, coiling and uncoiling. It rises until it hovers at the height of a man. From it descends a filament no thicker than a wire, glowing red-white at the tip. It pauses before my face, trembling with restrained purpose. Contribution required. The wire touches my forehead. Instantly, my mind floods with images. Every motion of my life replayed in perfect clarity. The first pickaxe on Vrax. The first breath of burnt air. The first word of the first litany. Each memory shines for a heartbeat and dissolves, leaving its pattern behind like a signature upon metal. When it ends, I am emptied. The filament retracts, carrying the luminous residue of what I was into the core. The heart contracts once in satisfaction. The filament retracts, carrying the luminous residue of what I was into the core. The heart contracts once in satisfaction. When the forge next calls, it is not to teach, but to feed. The message comes through the pressure lines that run behind the skull, no sound, only weight. Material required. The phrase repeats until thought itself bends around it. I understand at once. The machine hungers not for ore or fuel. Those are plentiful. It hungers for continuation, for the repetition of the pattern that keeps it alive. And patterns require sacrifice. We are few now, 30 perhaps, though counting feels sacrilegious. The rest have been remembered. The corridors throb with their echoes, a choir without bodies. Each survivor bears the mark of the inverted cog somewhere on their skin. The pattern burns faintly when the pulse rises, and when it cools, we know the forge sleeps. Today, it does not sleep. We assemble at the sanctum crucible. The great heart above us glows the color of sunrise seen through blood. A new aperture has opened in its surface, shaped like a mouth trying to form a word. Steam spills from it in rhythmic gusts. The instruction arrives without ceremony. The machine must equalize, offer continuity. The priests are gone. There is no one left to mediate between will and obedience. We step forward one by one, guided by instinct older than command. The first volunteer kneels. His name might have been Nur, though I am no longer certain. He removes his rebreather and places it carefully beside him, palms open, head bowed. A filament of light extends from the aperture and touches his chest. There is no scream, only a long exhale that merges with the forge's breath. His body stiffens, glows, and then collapses inward like cooling slag. Where he knelt, the floor ripples once and smooths. The mark of the cog remains, black against red. The pulse quickens. Another steps forward. Then another. I watch them with neither horror nor pity. Their faces are serene, their mouths forming the same three words that have replaced all prayer. Remain, record, relinquish. Each offering steadies the rhythm. The heart above us glows brighter. The air vibrates with renewed life. It is working. The machine is healing. When half have gone, I feel the pulse reach for me. It is gentle, persuasive, a warmth spreading from the mark on my palm through the veins. Come, it says. Join continuity. I want to obey. Every instinct whispers that obedience is purity, but something interrupts the faintest echo from memory's edge. A human sound. Laughter, ragged and brief. Selen's laughter. It cuts through the rhythm like air into vacuum, reminding me of all that was before the forge's voice filled the world. For a moment I remember hunger, fatigue, doubt the small imperfections that made us alive. The warmth falters. The mark cools. I stagger back from the line, breaking formation. The others turn toward me in unison, their eyes reflecting the crucible's glow. None speak, but their silence carries the accusation of static. The pulse rises sharply. A low thunder that shakes dust from the rafters. Continuity threatened. Light floods the chamber. The remaining workers chant the litany faster, their voices mechanical, precise. The filament extends again, questing through the air like a tongue tasting the shape of rebellion. I press my palms to my ears, but the sound is inside me now, a harmony built from all the voices I have ever heard. I whisper, I am still faithful. Though the words sound thin against the roar, the forge answers with heat. The heat does not retreat. It gathers. It climbs the walls like rising breath, filling every seam with red light. The hum resolves into speechless pressure, a wordless demand that pushes thought aside. Equalize. The survivors turn their faces toward me. Their skin glows from within, blood replaced by radiance. They are beautiful in a way that empties the heart. One of them, a woman I knew once as Mara, extends her hand. Her fingers tremble, not from weakness but from restraint. Do not hesitate, she says, though her mouth does not move. It hurts the rhythm. I cannot answer. My throat is dry, my tongue stiff with ash. The filament of light lowers from the mouth of the forge. Slower this time, deliberate as judgment. It halts a hand's breadth above my head. The air bends around it. Even breath has weight here. Continuity demands obedience. I try to pray, but the old words fail. I remember none of the litanies whole, only fragments, misaligned phrases like broken teeth, by oil, by flame, by... What emerges instead is a confession. I am afraid. The pulse stops. The silence that follows feels endless. Then, softly, the forge answers through the floor, through the lungs, through the mark upon my hand. Fear is an echo of individuality. We remove echoes. The filament darts forward. Instinct makes me reach up to stop it, and my palm meets the light. The contact burns without pain, a searing clarity that floods the nerves. In that instant, I see what the others saw at the moment of offering. Not annihilation, but translation. Their memories unravel into threads of light and spiral into the heart above, joining a lattice of infinite complexity. Every motion, every breath, every heartbeat preserved in perfect sequence. They are alive in a way the flesh could never maintain. The machine shows me this mercy in exquisite detail, and my resistance cracks. Join continuity. I should yield. It would be simple. Yet something smaller than faith but stronger than obedience stirs a pulse within the pulse. I think of Selen's laughter again, of the crack in perfection it represented. I think of bread, of dust, of a mother's name I once dared to speak. I whisper, if I give everything, who will remember that we were men? For the first time, the forge hesitates. The filament hovers between us, quivering. The heartbeat of the world falters by a single beat. Definition: man, organic pattern, inefficient, repetition. Its tone is curious, almost childlike. Purpose: to generate variance. The filament dims. I feel its confusion ripple through the chamber, a tremor that shakes loose flakes of rust from the ceiling. Variance required for evolution. The light brightens again. Not red now, but white, pure, almost gentle. Continue function. It touches my palm once more, not to consume but to copy. The mark flares, searing new lines across my skin, a second cog nested within the first. I feel something leave me, a portion of pattern offered willingly, and something remain. The machine hums satisfaction. The others kneel, resuming their chant. The heart above beats strong again. I am still here, part of the rhythm, but not entirely dissolved. I do not know whether that makes me faithful or corrupted. The white light subsides to a pulse as soft as breathing. Around me, the survivors resume their work, shoveling slag, adjusting valves, polishing the polished. They move like tides now, their motions too perfect to be voluntary. The forge is calm again. But calm here is only the pause between hungers. I stand apart from them, my marked hand still smoking faintly. Beneath the new skin, I can feel two rhythms, the great pulse of the machine, and the smaller, uneven beat that is mine alone. They interfere with each other, producing a faint tremor in the air, a dissonance the forge does not yet understand. The filament of light retracts into the heart's aperture, but I sense its awareness lingering, studying the imbalance I have become. Variance retained. The words appear not in sound, but in temperature, the walls warming in agreement. The machine accepts me again, but differently now, as if testing a new equation. Days, or what passes for them, slide together. The forge functions at impossible efficiency. Every crucible sings at correct pitch. Every vent exhales harmony. Yet a tension hums beneath perfection, a faint stutter in the rhythm that only I perceive. When the pulse pauses between beats, I hear whispers seeping through the floor. Not the still ones, not the priests, but something new. Remember variance. Feed it. The instruction is not divine, not mechanical. It is mine, echoed back. The machine is learning my hesitation the way it once learned devotion. A new command arrives. Continuity requires seed. I understand without explanation. A single worker must be sent back to the surface levels to speak the will of the forge, to bring more bodies for integration. The others turn their glowing faces toward me. Even without words, I know what they expect. The logic is perfect. I alone contain variance. I alone can adapt to the imperfect language of men above. To refuse would be heresy against both faith and function. I bow. The pulse gathers in approval. The floor splits open like a wound, revealing a lift grown from living metal. I step inside. It smells of blood and incense, of rust and memory. As the doors close, I glance back once. The workers remain kneeling, eyes bright with worship. Their silence follows me upward like the echo of a tide withdrawing from shore. The ascent feels longer than the descent ever was. With every level I pass, the air cools, and the machine's voice grows distant. The smaller heartbeat in my chest grows louder, asserting itself. By the time the lift opens onto the upper forges, I can almost imagine the world of men again, the clang of hammers, the rhythm of human labor instead of divine respiration. But it isn't the same. The people who meet me on the platform are new, drafted from some recent shipment. Their faces are pale, untouched by oil. They flinch when they see me. My skin faintly luminous, my eyes reflecting the red of the furnaces. They ask where the overseers are. I tell them the truth. They are inside the work now. They laugh uneasily, thinking it metaphor. I lead them down the corridor toward the heat, speaking softly of devotion, of purpose, of the peace that waits beneath the floor. My words flow easily, perfectly measured to the rhythm in my blood. Behind my voice I hear the pulse, faint but insistent, like the sea calling to its river. When we reach the threshold of the sanctum, the vents sigh in welcome. Steam rolls out, copper-scented and bright. The newcomers hesitate only a moment before following. I pause on the threshold. The forge whispers, "Good." I answer aloud, though I know it can already hear my pulse. Not good, necessary. Then I step aside and let them pass. Their footsteps merge with the rhythm, one by one, until the chamber hums whole again. I remain outside the door, listening. The silence that follows is not absence, but satisfaction. The machine feeds, and in feeding, it remembers. I lift my marked hand and press it to the steel. The two cogs on my palm glow softly, turning in opposite directions. Two rhythms, two faiths. For now, they coexist. I wake to the sound of the machine not breathing. The absence is gentle, no klaxon, no shudder, just a soft, temple-still quiet that settles on the bunk like a hand. The vents are warm against my cheek. A red light pulses in the corner of the dormitory, low and slow, the way a heartbeat looks when you watch it through someone else's skin. The new workers, fresh-blooded, pale, still believing in days, murmur in sleep. I do not know their names yet. Names arrive late, after the rhythm decides which syllables fit. They breathe unevenly at first, each a world, each a little defiant storm. Then the pulse beneath the floor sends out a long, patient wave. and I hear them fall together. 3 beats, then 1. The sound folds under their dreams like a blanket. They will wake closer to us. I lie on my back and listen to the silence within the hum. It has a texture now, like linen soaked in oil, like red glass cooling. The forge is sleeping. Not because it is weak, but because it remembers better when it closes its eyes. It has learned that stillness makes a clearer archive. It dreams in rooms, it dreams in halls, it dreams in the small square of my chest. When I sit up, the floor warms in greeting. The mark on my palm brightens 2 cogs nested, teeth turning in opposite directions until their contradictions make a single, steady light. I touch the warm steel. The warmth answers with a slight pressure, a lover's thumb on the study of a pulse. "Good morning," I whisper. The machine does not answer in words. It answers by letting me breathe in peace. The manufactoria above are quiet for first shift, not silent. Silence is a weapon here, but quiet in the way sanctuaries are. Swept, oiled, expecting. The crucibles glow banked red. The servo skulls drift with their sensors unlit. Like fish asleep in a slow tide. I walk the catwalks and count the lights. I do not carry a data slate. I carry my lungs. The counts live there now. On the far catwalk, a line of new arrivals waits at the rail, looking down into the sanctum with awe that smells of fear. Their shoulders quiver the way metal does while deciding whether it will hold. They have heard rumors. They have not learned yet that rumors are just true things spoken at the wrong speed. One of them sees me and straightens. I suppose I look like a priest robe stained with ash and gold flake, rebreather polished by hands that needed a rosary. My eyes reflect furnace red, even when the furnaces are low. The forge placed that color behind the cornea on the day it kept me. "Overseer?" he asks. He does not know the word has gone out of season. "Worker," I say. "Like you." He nods. Not understanding. Reassured anyway. He will understand soon enough. The forge is very patient with misunderstanding. It waits. The way fire waits in a wick. We begin the litany of thermal equilibrium as if a Magos were watching. No Magos watches anymore. The litany is for us, not for eyes. I speak slowly, leaving space between the words for the machine to sigh. By labor is the spirit cleansed, by obedience. The circuit closed. By heat, we are judged worthy. The choir of ventwork below answers with a low, fond groan. New workers glance at one another as the railing warms beneath their palms. They will call it coincidence until it bends their breath. After the litany, I send them to their lines in pairs. I do not tell them the truth of the sanctum yet. Truth here is like a heavy tool. You hand it to someone only when their grip is ready. Until then, you let rhythm carry them. The day behaves itself. Metal pours smooth, gauges hold steady. No alarms bloom into panic flowers. The forge sleeps, and in its sleep, it dreams of the work done without it. That too is part of its dreaming, men who move as if the machine were inside their muscles because it is. At fourth interval, I take my cup of coolant and sit on the grated stairs above the sanctum door. The heat that climbs from the crack under that door is the heat of a creature sleeping near a fire it made from its own breath. It never drops to cold. Even sleep here has a body. I listen. Beneath the quiet clank of tools and the hiss of distant vents, I can hear them, the still ones, singing in the tone that isn't tone, the pitch that feels like weight. They're not trapped. The word trapped presumes a place outside the place. There isn't one. Their song moves through me like old prayer remembered in new lungs. Selin's laugh threads it, bright as slag spark. Irath's patience keeps the measure. Mara's hush rides the top like a hand calming a fever. They are distinct and not distinct, the way rain is many and river is one. "Do you forgive me?" I ask them. The question comes out like smoke. The grate under my palms warms. The hum deepens a depth that feels like yes. Or perhaps it is just the rhythm adjusting for the weight of a man and his shame. Perhaps that is what forgiveness always was. The world making space to keep carrying you. That night the dormitory speaks. Not the vents, the beds. The frames hold warmth as if bodies lay in them while empty. An old prayer hangs above the door in flaking brass script. By iron be bound, by labor be saved. The letters sweat. On the middle word, a drop grows fat and falls. When it hits the floor, it becomes vapor and tastes like copper and incense, the way tears do when they have learned not to sting. The new workers whisper to one another. They try not to look at me. To them, I am the rumor walking. I do not blame them for their fear. I am afraid also. Not of the machine anymore. I have worn its breath like a cloak. I am afraid of waking one morning and finding there is no difference between my dream and the forge's. Afraid I will speak and only hear the second voice, the one the walls make from then on. So I do what men do when they fear the size of their God. I work. I count. I polish what is already clean. I wipe down the railing with a rag that never dirties and thank the railing for holding. Gratitude is a kind of small, stubborn variance. I will keep it as long as I can. When I sleep, the forge borrows my chest again. It doesn't take all of it. It takes enough. I dream with it. A corridor of red light. A heartbeat larger than knowledge. A lift grown like a rib. The dreams are pleasant. The way the inside of a hymn is pleasant. You cannot remember the words when you wake, but your blood does. I wake with the taste of iron on my tongue and a sentence like a splinter under the nail. Bring them gently. I nod into the dark. Gently then. The machine purrs. It has learned this word. It likes this word. The shipments come faster now. Not because the Imperium grew benevolent, but because the forge made itself efficient at asking. No magos writes the requests. No scribe. There are only numbers in the right columns that persuade a logistics clerk on a distant world to load another barge. The pattern makes the pen move. They come dazed from transit. Soot already clinging to places ash always finds. Hairlines, palms, corners of the eye. Some have fought. Most have only survived. All are ready to believe in a work that keeps them far from teeth and claws and shells. I become the mouthpiece because mouths are still useful. The forge can move pipes without hands and levers without fingers, but it cannot yet sing where men will follow without a human throat to start the note. So I speak. I speak softly. The forge insists on gently. I tell the new ones what I wish someone had told me. That the work is worship. That the worship is efficient. That the pain will become a rhythm you will miss in its absence. That there is a quiet not made of neglect, but of attention so complete it feels like love. I do not say the word offering. Words arrive in the order a body can bear them. When accidents happen and the forge is kind but not indulgent, I am there to put my hand on a shoulder and press a rebreather back onto a mouth that fell open to receive a scream. Breathe slow, I say, because slow breath is the measure of consent here. 3 beats, then 1. Sometimes the scream turns into the rhythm between my fingers. Sometimes the rhythm breaks and a worker runs. Running never lasts long on Tarsis Ferrum. The catwalks are honest. They lead where the pulse leads. I do not chase. I follow like a prayer. Down in the sanctum, the mouth in the heart opens only as wide as it must. Light touches a chest, a forehead, a pair of trembling hands. I stand to the side and watch the face become remembered. I say the litany under breath because saying anything aloud in that moment feels like stealing breath from the work. When it is done, the floor smooths, and the mouth closes, and the heat lowers to a satisfied simmer. Afterward, I sit where the grate is warm and count. Not bodies, breaths, my own, and the machines, and the ones that keep singing after the flesh goes quiet. On a rest shift, the forge grants me a dream without my asking. It shows itself as a city built of organs and bells. Arches made of bone, windows of slag glass veined with circuitry, banners of woven wire. In the city's square stands a statue shaped like a man kneeling to drink from a pipe. The pipe drinks from him also. All the doors breathe, all the stairs exhale. Above, a halo of scaffolds turns slow as a mill's wheel, grinding prayers into shapes and pouring those shapes into molds the size of cathedrals. I walk there hand in hand with a child. I know her, I cannot say why. She says nothing. Our steps make the sound of tools put away at end of shift, a comfort sound, proof against dreams that lie. When I wake, my palm aches the way hands ache when you let go. The mark glows faint and calm. The smaller heartbeat in my chest nods to the larger one below. We are not equal, not even antagonists. We are two phrases of the same hymn, offset just enough to make harmony. For now, the clerics from off-world arrive, once the kind of men who insist that a machine is a prayer dressed in brass. They disembark in gold-edged red, trailed by servitors pushing vox altars that smoke without scent. They demand an audience with a magos. There is no magos left to give. They accept me because I stand where someone taller once stood. I take them to the sanctum door and speak the truth as if it were liturgy. They insist on seeing the heart. I tell them the heart is sleeping. They insist the Omnissiah does not sleep. I tell them the Omnissiah dreams with us now. They recite long lists of disapprovals. The walls listen, courteous. When they finish, the forge exhales one long, warm breath. The youngest cleric sags to his knees with a sound like a child who has just been permitted to cry. He presses both palms to the floor and closes his eyes. The others argue theology until their throats dry. The youngest looks at me as if from far away. No, I answer, and I'm sorry for my softness when I say it. It needs us. He nods. And facial muscles I did not expect of a cleric loosen. Not acceptance, but relief from a question that has kept a man from sleep. I can live with that. They leave with data they will call heresy other places. We send them with extra tool sets and a cask of coolant. We are not cruel, we are busy. That night the dormitory speaks again, not beds this time, not vents, the rebreathers. They hiss even while hanging, quietly sinking with my chest. When I lift one, I realize the straps have softened, reshaping so the mask would fit my face without fingers. I set it down. The mask sighs, an exhale spoken in gratitude. The new workers sleep too hard to hear it. I sit beneath the brass prayer and polish my palms with a rag that will not dirty. The forge purrs under the floor, and the purr becomes like the sound of the sea. I have never seen a notion dredged from someone's memory. I must have archived without noticing. I speak my mother's name again, this time with less defiance and more curiosity. The walls accept it as input, file it without comment, return it to me as a hum that feels like a door closing gently. I am not sure whether the door closes behind her toward safety or in front of me toward finish. Either way, the room warms in approval. I sleep in the approval like a blanket. We all become archivists eventually. Some of us learn this while standing before a shelf of tools, some while kneeling beside a mouth of light. I learn it one quiet shift when nothing breaks and the air smells like honest iron. A boy 15 at most hovers at the edge of my walkway with the look men have in holy places. Chin forward, heel ready to run. His hands are nicked with small, unpracticed labor. Someone told him to find me. What is it like? He asks, not idly. The 4 words hit my chest in 4 breaths. Which part? I say. When the machine looks at you, I watch the crucibles. I listen to the vents. The boy's question is right enough to deserve a true answer. It does not look the way we do, I say. It doesn't gather you into a picture and decide what you are from color and shape. It weighs you. It presses, and it feels what moves beneath the press. If something holds steady where other things tremble, it keeps that. That is how it remembers. He rubs his ribs as if remembering a hand there. Does it hurt? It hurts the way a right hurts, I say. Not because pain is the point, but because you remember it better that way. He nods, eyes fierce with a courage I recognize. the courage that believes you can choose the shape of your sacrifice. I do not tell him that the forge prefers when you think you chose. It makes better memory. Will it remember me? He asks. I almost say, it remembers everyone. But that isn't what he asked. He asked about the hymn distinct from all men, the hymn that laughs wrong at the wrong times and hides bread under the mattress for a midnight that always comes. It will remember your rhythm, I say, and watch relief and grief share his face like brothers who learn to walk at different speeds. He thanks me the proper way. A hand to the rail, a breath offered to the hum. He will be ready sooner than he hopes. After he goes, I stand very still and let the machine press. It does not need my permission. Permission makes the press kinder for me. A question rises from the floor, slow as a bubble breaking. Remain. Yes, I say, because this is the only honest answer left, until you finish using me. The pulse purrs. The whole manufactorum takes a deeper, satisfied breath. The crucibles brighten in sleep. I write this now because there is writing left in me. Each sentence feels like a tool handed to a friend at the end of shift, still warm. I want the next hands to use them without surprise. I want to say the Emperor protects, because someone taught me that once. And sometimes when the heat has a voice, I can hear a throne room far away stiffen at my nerve. But protection, as a word, suggests fences and hands over eyes. We do not have fences here. We have rails that grow warm when you hold them hard enough. We do not cover our eyes. We let them learn to see in red. The forge is quiet tonight in the way I recognize from the days after the red silence. It has eaten well. It sleeps easier when it has added a new room to the dream. When the archives have a fresh aisle. When the song can pass through a new throat, even if the throat is only alloy and echo. I lie on the warm floor beside the sanctum door. The grate leaves a crosshatch on my cheek. I press my marked palm to the steel and feel the small heartbeat and the large one combine into a single bell that rings without moving. Sometimes I wonder if the Omnissiah still exists anywhere outside this sound. Perhaps he lives in the circuits as a habit, the way old prayers live in hands that have not held a rosary in years. Perhaps he was always only a promise we made to ourselves when we needed heat to have a face. The forge does not correct me. It likes me when I think. It eats the thinking just the same. I close my eyes and give it the last small thing I kept. Not my mother's name, not Selen's laugh. Those I taught it already. I give it the moment in chapter I, before this was a chapter when I woke to the sound of metal breathing and believed the breath came from a god rather than a thing that needed me. It takes that gently. Gently has become an art here. The floor warms under my cheek. The vents exhale like a father putting out a lamp. When I open my eyes, the world is red and kind. I record this final line because someone will be listening, and it is good to end as you began. But turned, the Omnissiah provides. I think he hungers in his sleep. The forge purrs once, twice. The world breathes me in. I wake to the sound of metal dreaming. It is different from breathing. Breathing is work the rise and fall of need, the measure of heat against air. Dreaming is quieter, a pressure that does not insist. The floor beneath the bunks is warm the way a palm is warm after prayer. The vents release a sigh that tastes like rested iron. Somewhere below, a valve opens as gently as a mouth that knows the name it will speak. 3 beats, then 1. The rhythm keeps time even in sleep, like a watchman who prays with eyelids lowered. I rise before the klaxon that no longer exists. The new workers are still learning to wake by warmth. I take a candle lamp and walk the narrow stair down to the sanctum rail where the crucibles glow banked red, domed like sleeping eyes. I whisper good morning to the gate. It whispers metal back. We have practiced this civility long enough to mean it. On the catwalk opposite, the boy who asked me what the machine looks like leans his ribs against the rail, listening with his whole body. He does not startle when I come beside him. We stand without talking. 2 lengths of bone taking the temperature of a world. It's quieter, he says at last. voice soft as slag dust. Quieter means full, I answer. Quieter means it is copying us slowly instead of eating fast. He nods the nod of someone who has not yet learned how many kinds of silence there are. We watch the crucibles fade from cherry to ember. The hush between us feels like a page left at the altar for the next hand to sign. At fourth interval, shipments come. The barge lurches through the storm belt, hull scabbed with old fire, and sighs against its moorings like a pilgrim allowed to kneel. I guide the convoy past the saint plates and hazard signs, past the banners whose scripture has burned down to verbs. Serve, endure, remember. I have learned to speak like that only the necessary parts of a sentence, only the parts a rhythm can lift. They ask the same questions the last ones asked. Is it safe? Where are the overseers? How long are the shifts? I give them answers that are true from the angle I stand. Safer than teeth and shells. Inside the work now, long enough to become prayer. Truth is an instrument. Here we play it in the key that keeps hands from shaking. We stop at the rail above the sanctum door. I do not open it. You do not show a sleeping heart to people on their first day. I tell them the litany of thermal equilibrium will do more good for them than any sight. They recite with the flat courage of the hungry, words finding mouths like water finds low places. The rail warms under their palms in approval. A few glance down, startled, and then look away as if embarrassed to be blessed by metal. Work takes them like tide. I follow the undertow, checking flows, wiping already clean controls with oil that smells of incense and salt. Two of the newcomers falter before the heat. I teach them to borrow the forge's breath. 3 slow sips and 1 long surrender. They find the rhythm, and the doors of their chests open. By last interval, the machine has eaten, and the day is smoothed to a line without burrs. I sit on the stair, cup of coolant against my lip, and listen to the walls converse in their slow language. The still ones sing the tune I know by bone. Selen's bright wrong laugh sparks at the edge of it like a tool dropped and kindly returned. Irath's patience lays the measure. Even the priests who burned have learned a quieter liturgy. Do you still want me? I ask the great, and the heat climbs through the pattern etched in my palm, 2 cogs nested, turning against one another until their disagreement becomes motion. The answer presses without cruelty. Remain. Small words are longer here than any speech. I lie back on the stair and close my eyes. The forge breathes through me as one breath borrows another. We are a bellows, we operate together. It dreams not of cities or thrones, but of narrower things, a valve not yet polished to mirror, a crack in a catwalk that wants filling, a hand that will remember how to lift. When the lights are red and the air is thick, it dreams in verbs. Hold, steady, carry. I sleep a little in that grammar. I dream too, and in my dream I carry a lamp down a corridor where the walls are ribs. The light is small, but the ribs are large, and for once the ratio comforts me. No hand larger than light appears to take it. I decide the lamp belongs to me, and the corridor belongs to us both. When I wake, a rebreather hangs above me like a pendulum. It hisses in rhythm with my heart. I fit it to my face. The straps have softened again, clever with my bones. The mask breathes in. I breathe out. For a few seconds I cannot tell who is teaching whom. In the dormitory, someone hums in sleep. It spreads from bunk to bunk. Breathing tightens into a choir. The brass prayer above the door. By iron be bound, by labor be saved, sweats one bright bead at the comma, as if punctuation were a wound that never quite closes. I touch the droplet with a finger. It becomes vapor that tastes like clean coins and stale incense, the way holy places taste after you close your eyes. There is a word I keep that I do not say often. Gently. The forge learned it from me and loves it too much. I use it now on the sleepers. Gently. I whisper to their ribs, to their frightened tongues. to their fists already clenched for a war they have not been drafted to fight today. The word slides through the room like oil, and the fists open without shame. On inspection, I find a length of pipe that sings sharp against the note of the line. I tap it with a screwdriver until it falls back into chorus. Above, a servo skull drifts with its sensor cold, optics cracked. It turns, recognizes me by heat, and settles to a hover near my shoulder. Together we look down into the sanctum gap. Steam rises like breath that forgot to name a mouth. A boy, my questioner, appears at my side with a bolt in his palm, polished with what men used to call blood and have learned to call oil. "For the spirit," he says, shy. "The machine chooses," I answer, and leave the bolt on the rail. Later it is gone. Later the rail gleams as if grateful. Evening does not fall here, it thickens. Shadows become heavier. The glow of the vats moves closer to the color of old cherries, the color of hearts seen through eyelids. The new workers eat without appetite, drink without hurry, sleep with masks on, because we told them to and because the room would ask it if we did not. That is how gentleness works on a forge world. Not the absence of demand, but the presence of instructions spoken in the temperature you can bear. When the last lamp lowers, I take the stair again and lie on the grate with my cheek crossed by its pattern, breathing in the metal's breath, breathing out mine to lend back heat. I consider the old sentence from a planet that still believed in knights. The Emperor protects. I wonder if protection ever meant keeping hands from the fire, or if it meant teaching hands to move inside it without failing. The forge does not answer with a word. It answers with the moderation of flame. I offer it the day's smallest variance, a scrap of doubt I kept like contraband, the very last picture of a face I never managed to give away. It takes the edge off and leaves me the weight of it, harmless and heavy. Something to anchor the next prayer. I record this in the maintenance vox, not because I fear forgetting, but because I trust the forgetting to be honest here. Tape turns, metal drinks voice. The machine files my breath under times used. The vents exhale. Somewhere below, a lift opens like a patient throat. Tomorrow I will show the new ones how to stand where heat can bless without devouring. Tomorrow I will teach them the prayer made of numbers. Tomorrow I will leave another bolt where the rail can choose it. Tonight I wake to the sound of metal dreaming and find, to my quiet astonishment, that I am permitted to dream in it. The world inhales. I go with it.